What's good? It's your girl, Taquise Jones, a.k.a. Killer Queen T, a.k.a. Blackout T, a.k.a. Oh my God, why are you sitting on the floor? A.k.a. I didn't feel like sitting in a chair. And that's pretty much what happened. And that's on Ing. Because y'all know I've been trying to get that popping on that Ingling. Taquise, nobody watches your video. Oh, they will though. They will though. They will though. They will though. Okay, so now what we supposed to be working on today is, I don't remember exactly. I don't want to give you something that I'm not supposed to be giving you because I don't exactly know what you are supposed to be getting today. So, Elijah, hand me that book up though, and the other book, both books.
Other books?
No, the Sisterhood book and the Fallen book. And the red book. Yes, red book. Yeah, that's red. Bring it here. Come on.
The black one and the red?
Yeah, bring them here. So, since I really don't know what I was supposed to be doing and I can't figure it out, I'm going to just finish up a couple of chapters because I think I should be able to finish up. We're going to finish up Sister of the Blackberry Corner. That's the first thing we're going to finish because we are on chapter 19 and that I really feel like I should be doing
I'm going to have to go in the room with this.
I feel like I should be reading to y'all a chapter of my book online. And y'all know, I know y'all like space. What book online? Left Behind. Actually, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not even gonna give y'all that. I'm gonna go ahead and see where we is over here on Left Behind. And that's where we will be today. Because I'm a chapter. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Yep, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do Left Behind today. Chapter 7. Kenris roared up to the midpoint precisely at 6, rolled down his window and said, "You Williams?" "I'm your man," Buck said. He climbed into the late model 4-wheel drive with his one bag. Fingering his freshly bandaged head, Buck smiled at the thought of Mac enjoying his extra $20. Reese was tall and lean with a weathered face and a shook of salt and pepper hair. "Let's get down to business," he said. At 7:40 miles from O'Hara to JF Kennedy and 7:46 from Milwaukee to JFK. I'm going to get you as close to JFK as I can, and we're about equal distance between O'Hara and Milwaukee. So let's call it 743 air miles. Multiply that by $20. You're talking 14,086. Run it off to 15,000 for the taxi service, and we got us a deal. Damn. Deal, Buck said, pulling out his checks and starting aside. Pretty expensive taxi. Riss laughs, especially for a guy coming out of the midpoint. It was lovely. Riss parked in a metal Quonset hut at the Milwaukee airport and chatted while running through pre-flight procedures. "No crashes here," he said. "There were 2 at Milwaukee. They lost a couple of staff people here, though. Weirder than weird, wasn't it?" Buck and Rick shared stories of lost relatives, where they were when it happened, exactly who they were. "Never flew a Ryder before," Ken said. "Charter, I mean. Must have flown a bunch of your types when I was commercial. Better money on your own." "Yeah, but I didn't know that when I switched. It wasn't my choice." They were climbing into the Lear. Buck shot him a double take. "You were grounded?" "Don't worry, partner," the pilot said. "I'll get you there. You owe it to me to tell me if you were grounded." "I was fired. There's a difference." "Depends on what you were fired for, doesn't it?" "True enough. This ought to make you feel real good." I was fired for being too careful." "Beat that. Talk to me," Buck said. "You remember a lot of years ago when there was all that flack about puddle jumpers going down in icy weather?" "Yeah, until they made some adjustments or something." "Right. When you remember that one pilot refused to fly even after he was told to, and the pilot was assured everything up to that point was explainable or a fluke?" "Uh-huh. And you remember that there was another crash right after that, which proved the pilot right?" "Vaguely. Well, I remember it plain as day because you're looking at him. I do feel better. You know how many of those same model puddle jumpers are in the air today? Not a one. When you're right, you're right. But was I reinstated? No. Once a troublemaker, always a troublemaker. A lot of my colleagues were grateful though, and some pilots' widows were pretty angry that I got ignored, and some pilots' widows were pretty angry that I got ignored, and then canned. Too late for their husbands. Ouch. As the gat, As the jet screamed east, Riz wanted to know what Buck thought of the disappearances. Funny you should ask, Buck said. I've got to start working on that in earnest today. What's your read on it? And do you mind if I flip on a digital recorder? Fine, Riz said. Dangest thing I ever seen. Of course, that doesn't make me unique. I have to say, though, I always believed in UFOs. You're kidding. A level-headed, safety conscious pilot? Riz nodded. I'm not talking about little green man, space aliens who kidnap people. I'm talking about some of the more documentable stuff, like some astronauts have seen and some pilots. You ever seen anything? Nope. Well, a couple of unexplainable things. Some lights, some migraines. Once I thought I was flying too close to a squad of helicopters. Not too far from here. Great Lakes Naval Station. I radioed a warning, then lost sight of them. I suppose that's explainable. I could have been going faster than I realized and not been as close as I thought. But I never got an answer. No acknowledgement that they were even airborne. Good wanted to confirm it. I shrugged it off, but a few weeks later, close to the same spot, my instruments went wacky on me. Dial spinning, meter sticking, that kind of thing. What did you make of it? Magnetic field or some force like that. Could be explainable too. You know, there's no sense reporting strange occurrences or sightings near a military base, because they just reject them out of hand. They don't even take seriously anything strange within several feet of a commercial airport. I'm just spitting like a motherfucker. Y'all do not see the spit that's dripping on this, but I do. That's why you never hear stories of UFOs near O'Hara, not even considered. So you don't bother kidnapping space aliens, but you connect the disappearances with UFOs. I'm just saying, it's not like ET with creatures and all that. I think our ideas of what space people would look like are way too simple and rudimentary. If there is intelligent life out there, and there has to be because of the sheer odds, what do you mean? The vastness of space. Oh, so many stars and so much area that something has to be out there somewhere? Exactly. And I agree with people who think those beings are more intelligent than we are. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it out here if they are here. And if they are, I'm thinking that's sophisticated and advanced enough that they can do things we never dreamed of. Like making people disappear right out of their clothes. Sounds pretty silly until the other night, didn't it? Buck nodded. I always laugh when people assume these beings could read our thoughts or get into our heads and stuff, Risk continued. But look who's missing. Everyone I read about or heard about or knew who's now gone was either under 20 years old or was an unusual personality. With all the people who disappeared, you think they had something in common? Well, they got something in common now, wouldn't you say? But something set them apart. Made them easier to snatch, Buck said. That's what I think. So we're still here because we were strong enough to resist. Or maybe we weren't worth the trouble. Riz nodded. Something like that. It's almost like some force of power was able to read the level of resistance or weakness. And once that force got sunk in, it was able to rip those people right off the earth. They disappeared in an instant. So they had to be materialized. The question is whether they were destroyed in the process or could be reassembled. What do you think, Mr. Ritz? So this is what you decided to do when I go live?
No.
You wasn't doing none of that while I wasn't on live. While I wasn't making the video, but now that I'm making the video, this is what you want to do. That's a comforting thought, Buck said. But it's more than wishful thinking. Hardly. The ideal in 50 cents would be worth half a dollar. I fly planes for money. I haven't got a clue. I'm still as much in shock as the next guy. And I don't mind telling you, I'm scared that it might happen again. If it was anything like I think it was, maybe all this force needs to do now is crank up the power somehow, and they can get older people, smarter people, people with more resistance that they ignored the first time around. Buck shrugged and sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, he said, "There's a little hole in your argument. I know some people who are missing who seem as strong as anyone. I wasn't talking about physical strength. Neither was I." Buck thought about Lucinda Washington. "I lost a friend and coworker who was bright, healthy, happy, strong, and a forceful personality." Well, I'm not saying I know everything or even anything. You want my theory? There it is. That's exactly how we go about it. Hey. You wanted my theory. There it is. Don't be coming hard for me. You ask mine. Rayford Stilly lay on his back, staring at the ceiling. Sleep had come hard and intermissionally, and he hated the loggy feeling. He didn't want to watch the news. He didn't want to read the paper, even knowing a new one had flopped up on the porch before dawn. All he wanted was Chloe to get home so they could grieve together. There was nothing, he decided, more lonely than grief. He and his daughter would have work to do too. He wanted to investigate, to learn, to know, to act. He started by searching for a Bible, not the family Bible that had collected dust on the shelf for years, but Irene's. Hers would have notes in it, maybe something that would point him in the right direction. It wasn't so hard to find. It was usually within arm's reach of where she slept. He found it on the floor next to the bed. Would there be some guide, an index, something that refers to the rapture or the judgment or something? If not, maybe he'd start at the end. If Genesis meant beginning, maybe Revolution had something to do with the end, even though it didn't mean that. The only Bible verse Rayford could quote by heart was Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He hoped there would be some corresponding verse at the end of the Bible that said something like, in the end, God took all of his people to heaven and gave everybody else one more chance. But no such luck. The very last verse in the Bible meant nothing to him. It said, the grace of the Lord Jesus will be with you all. Amen. And it sounded like the religious mumbo-jumbo he had heard in church. He backed up a verse and read, he who testifies to these things say, yes, I am coming quickly. Amen. Come, Lord Jesus. Lord Jesus. Now he was getting somewhere. Who was this who testified of these things, and what were these things? The quoted words were in red. What did that mean? It meant that somebody spoke them. He looked through the Bible and then noticed on the spine words of Christ in red. I told you, that's somebody said that, and it happened to be Jesus. So Jesus said he was coming quickly. Had he come? And if the Bible was as old as it seemed, what did quickly mean? It must not have meant soon, unless it was from the perspective of someone with a long view of history. Maybe Jesus meant that when he came, he would do it quickly. Was that what this was all about? Rayford glanced at the last chapter as a whole. 3 other verses had red letters, and 2 of those repeated the business about coming quickly. Rayford could make no sense of the text of the chapter. It seemed old and formal. But near the end of the chapter was a verse that ended with words that had a strange impact on him. Without a hint of the meaning, he read, let the one who is thirsty come. Let the one who wishes to take the water of life without cost. Jesus wouldn't have been the one who was thirsty. He would not have been the one who wished to take the water of life. That Rayford assumed referred to the reader. It struck him that he was thirsty, so thirsty. But what was the water of life? He had already paid the terrible cost for missing it. Whatever it was, it had been in this book for hundreds of years. Rayford idly leafed through the Bible to other passages, none of which made sense to him. They discouraged him because they didn't seem to flow together, to refer to each other, to have a direction. Language and concepts foreign to him were not helping. Here and there he saw notes in the migrants and Ivory's delicate handwriting. Sometimes she simply wrote precious. He was determined to study and found someone who could explain these precious to him. He was tempted to write preciousness to that verse in Revelation about taking the water of life without cost. It sounded precious to him, though he couldn't yet make it compute. Worst of all, he feared he was reading the Bible too late. Clearly, he was too late to have gone to heaven with his wife and son. But was he too late, period? And that's on ink. In the front 5-leaf was the last Sunday's church bulletin. What was this? Wednesday morning? 3 days ago, he had been where? In the garage. Remy had begged him to go with them to church. He had promised he would next Sunday. That's what you said last week, Remy had said. Do you want me to fix this 4-wheeler for you or not? I don't have all the time in the world. Remy was not one for pushing a guilt trip. He just repeated next Sunday. For sure, Remy had said. And now he wished next Sunday was here. He wished even more that Remy were there to go with him because he would go. Or would he? Would he be off that day? Would he be off work that day? And would there be church? Was anyone left in the congregation? He pulled a bulletin from Irene's Bible and circled the phone number. Later that day, after he checked in with Penn Constitutional, he would call the church office and see if anything was going on. He was about to set the Bible on the bed table when he grew curious and opened the front flyleaf again. On the first white papered page, he saw the inscription. He had given this Bible to Irene on their first wedding anniversary. How could he have forgotten? And what he had been thinking. She was no more devout than he back then. But she talked about wanting to get serious about church attendance before the children came along. He had been angling for something or trying to impress her. Maybe he thought she would think him spiritual if he gave her a gift like that. Maybe he was hoping she would let him off the hook and go to church by herself if he proved his spiritual sensibility with this gift. Oh, I need to every. I'm just like, why are you here? Why? I have a headache now. And I don't see my video. Why did I look? Maybe he... Okay. For years, he had tolerated church. They had gone to one that determined little and off the lot. They had made friends and had found the doctor, dentist, insurance man, and even country club entree in that church. Rayford was Reverend proudly introduced as a 747 captain to newcomers and guests, and even served on a church board for several years. When Irene discovered the Christian radio station and what she called real preaching and teaching, she grew disenchanted with their church and began searching for a new one. They gave Rayford the opportunity to quit going at all, telling her that when she found one she really liked, he would start going again. She found one, and he tried it occasionally, but it was a little too literal and personal and challenging for him. He was not reverbed. He felt like a project, and he pretty much stayed away. Rayford noticed another bit of Irene's handwriting. It was labeled her prayer list, and he was at the top. She had written "Route for his salvation," and that I be a loving wife to him. Chloe, that she come to Christ and live in purity. Ray Jr., that he never strayed from his strong childlike faith. Then she listed her pastor, political leaders, ministries, world conflict, and several friends and other relatives. For his salvation, Rayford whispered, salvation? Another $10 church word that had never really impressed him. He knew Irene's new church was interested in the salvation of souls, something he never heard in the previous church, but the closer he had gotten to the concept, the more he had been repelled. Didn't salvation have something to do with confrontation, baptism, testifying, getting religion, being holy? He hadn't wanted to deal with it, whatever it was. And now he was desperate to know exactly what it meant. I know. Ken Riss radioed ahead to airports in Let me pause, y'all. Let me finish this. Oh! Okay, now we back to me and Ken. Ken Riss radioed ahead to airports in southern New York, finally getting clearance to touch down in eastern Pennsylvania. You know, Riss said, these are old stomping grounds of Larry Holmes, one of the heavyweight champions of the world. The guy that beat Ali, one and the same. If he's still around, whoever was taking people might have got a knock on that noggin from old Larry. You could bet on that. The pilot acts personal in Easton if they could arrange a ride to New York City for his passenger. You're drunk right there? Didn't mean to over. We got a guy can get him to within a couple of miles of the subway. No cars in and out of the city yet. And even the trains have some kind of complicated route that takes them around bad sights. Bad sights? Buck repeated. Say again, Riss Radio. Have you been watching the news? Some of the worst disasters in the city were the result of disappearing motormen and dispatchers. 6 trains were involved in a head-on with lots of deaths. Several trains ran up the back of other ones. It'll be days before they clear out the tracks and replace cars. You sure your man wants to get into Midtown? Roger. Seems like the type who can handle it. Hope he's got good hiking boots. Over. It cost Buck another premium for a ride close enough to the train that he could walk the rest of the way. His driver had not even been a cabbie, nor the vehicle a cab. But it might as well have been. It was just discrepant and unsafe. A 2-mile walk got him to the train platform at about noon, where he waited more than 40 minutes with a mass of humanity, only to find himself among the last half who had to wait another half hour for the next train. You gotta be quicker than that. You gotta be quicker than that. That's all I gotta say to this man. The zigzag ride took 2 hours to get to Manhattan. And all during the trip, Buck tapped at the keys on his keyboard or stared at the window at the gridlock that went on for miles. He knew many of his locally based colleagues would have already filled similar reports, so his only hope of scoring with Steve Plank and having his seed publication was if his was more powerfully or elegantly written. He was in such awe of the scene that he doubted he could pull it off. At the very least, he was adding drama to his own memoirs. New York City was at a standstill, and the biggest surprise was that they was letting people in at all. No doubt many of these, like him, lived here and needed to get to their homes and apartments. The train lured to a stop far short of where he had been told it would reach. The gambled announcement, the best he could make out, informed passengers that this was the new last stop. Their next jog would have put them in the middle of a crane site where cars were being lifted off the track. Buck calculated about a fit. This is a lot of walking. I am so over this. I'm so over this. 15. That's not over. Right. Come off it. Oh my God. Now I'm lost and I don't remember where the hell I was at. A 15-minute walk to his office and another 5 to his apartment. Fortunately, Buck was in great shape. He put everything to his bag and shortened the strap so he could carry it close to his body without it swinging. He set it off at what he guessed was a 4-mile-per-hour pace, and 3 hours later he was hurting. He was sure he had blisters and his neck and shoulders were tired from the bag and strap. He was shredding through his clothes, and there was no way he was going to get to his apartment before stopping in at the office. Oh God, help me, Buck breathed. More exaggerated than praying. But if there was a God, he decided God had a sense of humor. Leaning against a brick wall in the alley in plain sight with a yellow bicycle with a cardboard sign clipped to it, it said, "Borrow this bike. Take it where you like. Leave it for someone else in need. No charge." Only in Newark, he thought. Nobody steals something that's free. He thought about breathing a prayer of thanks. But somehow the world he was looking at didn't show any evidence of a benefit creator. He mounted the bike, realizing how long it had been since he had been aboard one, and walked. Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and break it down. And wobbled off till he had found his balance. It wasn't long before he cruised into Midtown between the snoring of Reckless and Wreckers. Only a few other people were traveling as effectively as he was. Courtiers on bikes, 2 others on yellow bikes just like his, and cops on horseback. Security was tight at the Global Weekly building, which somehow didn't surprise them. After identifying himself to a new desk clerk, he rolled to the 27th floor, stopped in the public washroom to freshen up, and finally entered the main suites of the magazine. The repetitionist immediately buzzed Steve Plank's office, and both Steve and Marge Porter hurried out to embrace and welcome him. Buck Williams was hit with a strange new emotion. He nearly wept. He realized he, along with everyone else, was enduring a hideous trauma and that he had no doubt been running on adrenaline. But somehow, getting back to familiar territory, eventually with the expense and effort it had taken, made him feel as if he had come home. He was with people who cared about him. This was his family. He was really, really glad to see them. And the feeling was mutual. He bit his lip to keep from clouding up, and as he followed Steve and Marge down the hall past his tiny cluttered office into Steve's spacious office conference room, he asked if they had heard about Lucinda Washington. Marge stopped in the corridor, bringing her hands to her face. Yes, she managed, and I wasn't going to do this again. We lost several. Where does the grievance start and end? With that, Buck lost it. He couldn't pretend any longer. Though he was as surprised as anyone at his own sensitivity. Steve put an arm around his secretary and guided her and Buck into the office, where others from the senior staff waited. They cheered when they saw Buck. There were people, the ones he had worked with, fought with, feuded with, irritated, and scooped, now seemed genuinely glad to see him. They could have no idea how he felt. Boy, it's good to be back, he said, and then buried his head in his hands. His body began to shake, and he could fight the tears no longer. He began to sob, right there in front of his colleagues and competitors. He tried to wipe the tears away and compose himself, but when he looked up, forcing an embarrassed smile, he noticed everyone else was emotional too. "It's all right, Bucky," one said. If this is your first cry, your discovery won't be your last. We're all just as scared and stunned and grief-stricken as you are." "Yeah," another said. But his personal account will no doubt be more compelling, which made everyone laugh and cry all the more. Okay, y'all. So, okay, I can do it. We can make it. We gonna make it. Rayford talked himself into calling the Pancon Flight Center early in the afternoon. He learned that he was to report in for a Friday flight 2 days later. "Really?" he said. "Don't count on actually flying in," he was told. "Not too many flights are expected to be lifted off by then. Certainly none until late tomorrow. And maybe not even then. There's a chance I'll get called off before I leave home. More than a chance, but that's your assignment for now. Who's the route? ORD to BOS to JFK. Chicago, Boston, New York. Home when? Saturday night? Good. Why? Got a date? Not funny. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, Captain. I forgot who I was talking to. You know about my family? Everyone here knows, sir. What's sorry? We heard it from the senior flight attendant on your aborted half-the-world run. You got the word on your first officer on that flight, didn't you? I heard something, but never got any official word. What you hear? Suicide. Right, awful. Can you check on something for me? If it's in my power, Captain. My daughter's trying to get back this way from California. Unlikely. I know, but she's on her way. Trying anyway. She's more than likely trying to fight Pan. Can you check and see if she's on any of the manifests coming east? Shouldn't be too hard. There are a precious few, and you know none of them would be landing here. How about Milwaukee? Don't think so. He was tapping computer keys. Where would she originate? Somewhere near Palo Alto. Not good. Why? Hardly anything coming out of here. Let me check. Rayford could hear the man talking to himself, trying things, suggesting options. Air California, Utah. Hey, found her. Named Chloe. What's your last name? That's her. She checked in at Palo Alto. Pan put her on a bus to some outlying strip. Flew her to Salt Lake City to Air California. First time of the state. Okay, I'm coming. Of the state for that plane, I bet. She got on a Pancon plane. Oh, an Odie, and took her to old brother, Inwood, Oklahoma. Inwood. That's nowhere near. That's never been on our routes. No kidding. They were overrun with Dallas spillover too. Anyway, she's flying Oros to Springfield, Illinois. Oros, I just work here, Cap. Well, someone's trying to make it work, aren't they? Yeah. The good news is, I'm coming. We got a turbulence. Okay, give me a minute. Throw a pop or two down there that can get her up into the area, but it doesn't say where she might land. It might not even come up on the screen because they won't know till they get close. How will I know where to pick her up? You may not. I'm sure she'll call you when she lands. Who knows? Maybe she'll just show up. That'd be nice. Well, I'm sorry for what you're going through, sir, but you can be grateful your daughter didn't get on Pancon directly out of Palo Alto. The last one out of there went down last night. No survivors. And this was after the disappearances? Just last night. Totally unrelated. Wouldn't that have been a kick in the teeth? Rayford said, indeed. Okay, y'all. So y'all already know what I got to say. Hit a comment, like, subscribe, like, dislike, do something for the algorithm. And now I'm about to go wipe my baby booty because he should learn how to wipe his own booty, but he refuses to learn how to wipe his booty. So